Welcome to Awesome Chapter, the place where we crack open some of the most inspiring and influential books and, really give you the essential playbook for accelerated insight.
We're not just scanning the pages here.
No, not at all. We're using the text as a blueprint to fundamentally improve the way we operate in the world.
And today, we are undertaking a really deep exploration of a manual that I think many people wish they had received much, much earlier in life.
Oh, absolutely. It's Master Your Emotions, a practical guide to overcome negativity and better manage your feelings.
And that is the incredibly powerful work by Thibaut Meurisse.
Right, he's an accomplished author, a coach, and the founder of whatispersonaldevelopment.org.
And he frames this book in such a fascinating way. He basically calls it the missing instruction manual for the human mind.
The guide we absolutely should have gotten at birth or maybe in school. It fills this massive knowledge gap about how our feelings actually work.
The author's whole premise, really, is that the quality of our emotions directly determines the quality of our lives. It's that simple.
It seems simple, but it's so profound.
It is. If we go through life without a real understanding of what emotions are, where they come from, and how to harness them, well, we're basically limiting our potential. We're ensuring we can never truly design the ideal life we say we want.
Exactly. So the mission of this exploration today is to transform emotions from these, confusing, overwhelming forces that just sweep us away into reliable, manageable tools for personal growth. So we're going to break down Meurisse's framework into 4 big parts.
Okay.
First, we have to understand the fundamental biological wiring that really sets us up for an emotional struggle from day one.
Then we'll look at all the levers we can pull, both external and internal things, from sleep and posture to, the words we use.
Right. And third, we get to the core formula for emotional change itself. How do negative emotions actually form? And more importantly, how do we dismantle them?
And finally, we'll move into the practical application. We'll look at how mastering this helps us overcome these huge roadblocks like fear or resentment or that feeling of not being good enough.
And procrastination. Let's not forget that one. We'll give you specific strategies for each. So let's jump right in, because the first realization in this book is, well, it's pretty humbling.
It really is.
Okay, let's unpack this right away with the core biological reality from chapter 1. And the foundational truth is this: your brain is engineered, first and foremost, for survival, not for happiness.
And that distinction changes absolutely everything. I mean, if you think about it, for us to even be here, every single one of our ancestors had to successfully navigate constant life-threatening dangers.
Right, long enough to pass on their genes.
Exactly. And that demanded a biological design that was intensely focused on vigilance, on threat detection.
Which means the entire system is fundamentally biased toward the negative.
Completely. Our brains evolved to prioritize danger. It gives so much more weight to a potential threat than it does to a pleasant experience.
The classic example, right? It's better to wrongly assume a stick is a snake and run away
than to ignore a real snake and get bitten.
And this obsolete programming is still running in the background of our minds, even when we're perfectly safe in our modern lives.
That's the crazy part. The book highlights that even in a comfortable setting, our attention hardwires adverse events much more deeply than positive ones.
He gives such a great and, I think, agonizingly relatable example: the modern fear of rejection. If we rewind history, being rejected meant exile from the tribe, and that pretty much guaranteed death. That fear was a legitimate survival threat.
But look at today. I mean, if you get some criticism at work or if a product you create gets a terrible review, it's not like your food or your shelter is at risk.
Not at all. Your long-term existence is rarely impacted, and yet the emotional drama.
Oh, the drama is intense.
The sleepless nights, the dwelling on it. It suggests your ancient brain is perceiving the threat level as, imminent death.
It's so true. I think every creative person can relate to that specific example he gives of the author with 55-star reviews.
And one single 1-star review.
And what do they focus on? They'll likely ignore all that validation and just spend days, maybe weeks, fixated on that one piece of negativity.
That one criticism triggers the survival mechanism. The brain and the ego interpret it as this huge challenge to their validity.
And it confirms some inner fear, right? And that fear just gets amplified way out of proportion to all the positive feedback.
And this realization, right at the start of the book, it immediately forces the responsibility back onto you, the individual.
Which is key to the whole philosophy.
Yeah. If our biological mechanism is obsolete and biased toward creating unnecessary pain and worry, then it becomes our job to actively distinguish real threats from imaginary ones. We have to override the programming.
We absolutely do. We have this cognitive ability to shape our reality, to interpret events in a more empowering way, but we are constantly fighting that biological undertow.
And speaking of that undertow, he shifts right into the role of dopamine.
Dopamine. It's so interesting because it's essential for survival, right? It rewards the behaviors we need to keep the species going, seeking food, finding a mate.
By flooding our system with a sense of well-being, it's the reward.
It is the reward system, but in the modern world, that system is now highly, highly exploitable.
Right. We aren't seeking big, necessary rewards every now and then. We're getting addicted to these small, frequent shots of pleasure from artificial things.
Social media notifications, gaming, constantly checking the news feed.
And the author argues pretty strongly that this exploited reward system keeps people addicted to pleasure, which is definitely not the same as genuine happiness.
Not at all. We mistake the chemical rush for lasting contentment.
And when you leave that unchecked, the consequences can be, well, they can be extreme.
The book points to that frightening Tulane University study from decades ago. Participants had electrodes stimulating their pleasure centers.
And they chose continuous self-stimulation over basic necessities.
Over food. They refused to eat. They just wanted that continuous chemical high.
That is horrifying. It really just underscores the fundamental difference between the drive for pleasure and the state of sustainable happiness.
And we see the tragic, real-life consequences of this, like the case of Lee Sung-sup, the South Korean gamer who died back in 2005.
After playing for how long?
58 continuous hours. The exhaustion, the dehydration, it was all induced by this relentless pursuit of the dopamine hit, and it led to heart failure.
These extreme examples really illustrate a critical point. Exploiting the reward system can rob people of their capacity for real happiness.
Which is why the author emphasizes the need to actively take control of our emotional state instead of just waiting for happiness to happen naturally, or worse, chasing these artificial highs.
And that ties perfectly into the one day I will myth.
Ah, yes. The idea that once we hit that magical external benchmark, the promotion, the marriage, the big house, we will finally be fixed and happy forever.
The book completely debunks this. It cites hedonic adaptation,
Which basically means our minds acclimate to new situations incredibly quickly. It's an evolutionary survival tool.
So the initial excitement of any success, it just fades back to our baseline. The joy of the new car lasts maybe 6 months, and then,
Just the core.
yeah. The study he cites from 1978 is a huge wake-up call. Researchers looked at lottery winners and paraplegics.
Two of the most extreme, life-altering events you can imagine.
And yet, what did they find 1 year later?
Both groups had reverted to their predetermined baseline level of happiness. The external event had surprisingly little long-term impact on their sustained well-being.
That really challenges the cultural story we're all told, doesn't it? That we need to accumulate or achieve these external things to be happy.
It does. The author breaks down the pie chart of happiness. Only 10% is determined by external events, whether we're rich or poor, single or married.
Only 10%. And 50% is genetic, our fixed set point.
But the crucial part, the actionable part, is the 40%.
The internal factors.
Exactly. That 40% is determined entirely by our conscious attitude toward life and how we process our experiences. So if we spend 90% of our energy chasing the 10%,
We're just fundamentally misaligned.
and mastering our emotions is how we activate and control that 40%.
That reframing, knowing that we have 40% in our control, that's transformative. But we can't talk about emotional struggle without talking about the biggest engine of internal conflict.
The ego.
The ego. It's the next major hurdle the author identifies.
And it's so often misunderstood. It's not just pride or arrogance. The definition here is much, much broader.
It's the self-identity we construct over a lifetime, built entirely through our thoughts and interpretations. And he says it has no concrete reality.
It's the elaborate story we tell ourselves about who we are, and it's inherently fragile.
And this story is fabricated through identification with external factors.
Our name, our age, our job, our political beliefs, even our stuff.
And it's that identification that generates the emotional distress. Events in the world are neutral.
But they gain negative meaning when they challenge the ego's constructed story. If someone criticizes your core political beliefs, your ego interprets that as an attack on you.
Exactly. And that triggers the defensive emotional drama.
The ego is described as this restless, selfish entity. It's only concerned with its own survival, not our peace or happiness. It constantly needs to do, acquire, and achieve great things to remain a somebody.
And this need shows up everywhere. The author ties collective ego creation to things like consumerism. We buy stuff not for its utility, but because it contributes to the external story of who we are.
We also see it when people derive their self-worth from their physical appearance, or when relationships become an identity source, parents living through their kids, or feeling like you need someone else to be whole.
What's so fascinating is the ego's mechanism for survival, which is just constant comparison.
It creates these artificial separations. That's why gossiping is so popular. Putting someone else down momentarily elevates the group, making them feel superior.
And we see it in superiority and inferiority complexes. They're just two sides of the same coin, driven by this desire to be better than others.
And the relentless pursuit of fame, or even the simple daily act of loving to be right.
Complaining, for instance. He says that's the ego reinforcing its own righteousness. By complaining, you define yourself as the correct one, the victim, and the world is wrong.
This is purely self-serving.
So the ultimate realization here is that most of our negative emotions, the defensiveness, the upsets, the anger, they stem directly from this strong identification with a story that isn't even real.
And peace only comes when we decouple our identity from the ego's relentless need to be validated.
Okay, that sets the stage for why we struggle. So let's move into the nature of emotions themselves, because they're often misunderstood as, permanent flaws.
Chapter 3 really clarifies this. Emotions are transient, they are temporary visitors, and critically, they are useful.
Expecting to be happy all the time is, by his definition, a setup for failure.
A total setup. And the crucial insight is challenging the label of negative. Emotional pain isn't inherently bad, it's just a signal, like a temperature gauge in your car.
The analogy of physical pain is perfect. Physical pain stops us from dying by indicating a problem, a broken bone, or a bad diet.
And emotional pain serves the same purpose for the mind. It signals that something is wrong with our interpretations or our lifestyle. Maybe we need to quit a toxic job or discard a story that's holding us back.
And when we're in it, when we're immersed in difficult feelings like grief or intense sadness, we fall for the illusion of permanence.
We genuinely feel like it will never end.
But the author reminds us, and history confirms, all emotions eventually end. They are energy in motion.
And here's where it gets really interesting. The trickery of emotions. The state acts as a filter.
Right. When you are negative, that emotion just tints every single experience.
The external facts are identical, but your internal processing changes dramatically. The example of his business project is excellent. One day, he was excited about the launch.
And a few days later, mildly depressed. But nothing about the project had actually changed.
Nothing. The difference was purely internal. The emotional filter changed his perceived reality.
This highlights the magnetic power of emotions. A low mood acts like a magnet, attracting more negative thoughts on the same wave.
If you feel defeated, your mind will feed you every memory and thought that reinforces defeat, creating this vicious, self-perpetuating circle.
And the solution is conscious compartmentalization.
Exactly. When your knee hurts, the mind loves to cluster unrelated negative thoughts. My knee hurts, I can't exercise, I'll gain weight, my life is falling apart.
The goal is to separate the pain in your knee from the story about your career or your worth.
We also have the concept of emotional accessibility, which explains why being told to just cheer up when you're depressed is so useless.
And frustrating.
And frustrating. You just can't attract thoughts that are out of sync with your current emotional set point. Your brain can't access joy when it's stuck in hopelessness.
This is where the Hicks model of the emotional ladder comes in. It's a great tool.
It teaches incremental progress. If you're at hopelessness, trying to jump to joy is impossible. But moving from hopelessness to anger
is actually massive progress.
Right, because anger is a higher energy state.
Yeah.
It gives you the fuel you need to take action or change the situation. It's a step up.
And we have to come back to the idea that the emotion itself isn't the problem. It's the mental suffering created by our identification with it.
Think about procrastination. Dwelling on a task, worrying about it, delaying it, that causes far more suffering than just doing the work.
The book cites Dr. A.A. Brill, stating that 100% of fatigue in healthy sedentary workers is due to psychological and emotional factors, not physical exhaustion. Our mind is exhausting us.
And the ultimate philosophical step is realizing that problems are subjective. Objectively, they only exist when, 1, you focus on them.
2, they exist in the past or future, so only in your mind.
And 3, you label them as a problem. Reality just is. The interpretation creates the suffering.
Okay, that gives us the map of emotional suffering. Now let's explore the physical and mental levers we can actually pull to influence that 40% of internal happiness.
Part 2 of the book shifts gears entirely. It focuses on the GI Go principle, garbage in, garbage out.
If we take care of our physical needs and consciously choose positive inputs, our emotional state will follow.
And we start with the absolute foundation, sleep.
The author really stresses the severe impact of sleep deprivation. Getting less than 6 hours is linked to increased anxiety, depression, and a 13% higher mortality risk.
And crucially, chronic poor sleep reduces our capacity to even enjoy positive experiences. You physically can't access the upper end of your emotional range if you're always tired.
The strategies are practical. Total darkness, avoiding blue light from screens at night.
Which can reduce melatonin production by up to 50%.
Right. And creating consistent evening wind-down rituals.
Next up, body posture and exercise. This is where we apply the fake it until you make it principle, but with a biological basis.
Changing your posture physically alters your hormonal balance, which directly changes how you feel.
Amy Cuddy's famous high-power pose study is key here. Adopting an expansive, confident posture for just 2 minutes
showed a 25% increase in testosterone, which is linked to confidence, and a 10% decrease in the stress hormone cortisol.
You are literally hacking your internal chemistry by how you stand.
Conversely, David K. Reynolds' work shows that depression can be created by a slouched posture combined with repetitive negative self-talk. It locks you in a loop of, it's hopeless, I'm helpless.
And the only way out is forced physical action. Exercise is such a profound antidote.
The Duke University study showing exercise is as effective as antidepressants for mild to moderate depression is powerful stuff.
It offers immediate mood enhancement within 5 minutes and long-term relapse prevention. And we're not talking about running a marathon. 30 minutes of walking 5 days a week is often enough.
Okay, moving to internal factors, let's talk about thoughts. Our thoughts are the scaffolding of our reality.
Meditation helps us tame the monkey mind, that nonstop flow of random, often negative thoughts. It creates awareness, a distance.
And that distance reduces their power. You realize you are not the thoughts. You are the one observing the thoughts.
And visualization is a tool to consciously condition the mind. The subconscious can't tell the difference between a vividly imagined event and a real one.
So simulating desired experiences, gratitude, success, it actually programs the mind positively for the future.
Chapter 7 focuses on words. Our internal and external language dictates so much.
We can boost confidence just by replacing tentative words like try, hope, or maybe with declarative, assertive words like will, absolutely, definitely.
This applies to affirmations too. For them to work, the book says they must be specific, positive in the present tense, I am, and repeated daily with intense emotional engagement.
Like Tony Robbins' incantation, you involve your body, your focus, your voice, all at once to create a deep neurological imprint.
Chapter 8 highlights the often overlooked lever, breathing. Most of us breathe so shallowly, especially when stressed.
Slowing your breath down, even to just 1 cycle per minute, can dramatically calm anxiety, fear, and worry. It's like an immediate override button for the nervous system.
And conversely, rapid breathing techniques, like the breath of fire he mentions, can increase energy and alertness. Breathing is a direct tool for energy management.
Finally, we get to our external environment and music. Everything around us affects our mood.
A messy desk, negative people, toxic media, it all drags us down. Decluttering a physical space often provides an immediate motivational lift.
And music is one of the most powerful conditioning tools we have. Studies show that listening to positive music, even for just 12 minutes at a time, can significantly reduce anxiety and depression.
The key is to use it consciously. Create tailored playlists for specific emotional needs, gratitude, motivation, whatever you need to get into a peak performance mindset.
So we've established the foundation. The obsolete brain, the ego, and all these levers we could pull. Now we get to the core mechanism of emotional change itself.
Right. How do these long-lasting mind-created emotions actually form?
The author differentiates between spontaneous survival-based emotions, like pulling your hand from a flame, and the emotions that persist, often without an immediate external trigger.
And these are the result of identification with thoughts.
Which leads us to the fundamental formula that determines our emotional reality. Interpretation plus identification plus repetition equals a strong emotion.
And this is where the power is. Because if you remove any one of those 3 variables, the emotion just collapses.
Let's focus first on interpretation. This is just assigning meaning to a neutral event based on your personal story or your expectations.
The book argues that suffering arises when reality fails to meet our expectations.
Give us a concrete example.
Okay, getting cut off in traffic, the event itself is neutral. A car moved in front of yours.
Right.
Interpretation A is, that person is a rude, selfish jerk and they disrespected me. That leads to anger and road rage.
And interpretation B.
That person must be in a huge hurry. Maybe there's an emergency. I hope they're okay. That interpretation leads to compassion or just neutrality.
Yeah.
The reality is the same. The interpretation generated the emotion.
Reality itself is never upsetting. That's a huge thought.
The second component, identification, is the key to letting go. This is giving attention to the thought and allowing the emotion to persist. It's saying, this emotion is me.
And the core truth here is the most liberating concept in the whole book. You are not your emotions.
They're temporary, like clouds passing in the sky or clothes you put on and take off. If you disengage, if you stop saying, I am angry, and instead say, I'm experiencing a feeling of anger,
you create the distance needed for the emotion to just fade away.
And the final piece, repetition, is what turns a fleeting feeling into chronic resentment or anxiety. Repeating the interpretation and the identification process conditions the mind, making that strong emotion the default pathway.
To change, we have to start by changing our interpretation. We have to challenge the underlying assumptions that shape it.
We have to question our core beliefs. Problems should be avoided. I must achieve X status. I need to worry about the future. All these things.
We need to see that reality just is. The assumption that he died too young isn't an objective fact. It's an interpretation based on our expectation of lifespan.
Happiness comes from our attitude, the choice of interpretation, not whether external events align with our personal story.
If we accept that emotions are temporary and they aren't us, the next logical step is learning how to let them go. The author focuses heavily on the Sedona method for this.
This is critical because repressing emotions, interrupting their natural flow as energy in motion, causes them to sink into the subconscious. It becomes emotional baggage.
And that baggage then shows up as chronic stress or low self-worth or guilt. Detachment is the cure.
The first step toward detachment is simple labeling. Just shifting from the identified state of I am sad to the objective observation, I feel sadness, or I am experiencing a feeling of sadness.
That small linguistic shift creates massive distance.
And then we move to the practical 5-step Sedona method process. This technique forces you to take agency over your emotional experience.
Let's walk the listener through these steps because they're so practical.
Okay, step 1. Focus intently on the emotion you want to release. Find it in your body. Is it a tightness in your chest, a knot in your stomach? Where is it?
Step 2. Ask yourself one of 3 questions. Could I let this feeling go, or could I allow it to be here? Or could I welcome this feeling? The point is, can you allow it space without fighting it?
Step 3. Ask, would I? This is where the agency comes in. You have to answer honestly, even if the answer is no. Just acknowledging the choice is a huge step. If you answer yes, you are consciously choosing to let go.
Step 4. Ask when. And the answer must be immediate now. You're not putting it off. You're making the conscious choice to release the feeling in this present moment.
And step 5. Repeat the process until the feeling noticeably dissipates. The power here is in the conscious choice and the practice. You move from being a passive victim of the emotion to the active agent who decides when it can be released.
Once we can release the negative, we have to focus on consciously conditioning the mind for positive emotions.
Because thoughts generate emotions, which dictate actions and shape our reality. To manifest our goals, our thoughts need to be fueled with positive, high-energy emotions like enthusiasm and passion.
But the author cautions that simple positive thinking is limited unless you address the underlying addiction to a negative story, that belief that you are fundamentally flawed, which the ego loves.
So we apply the positive conditioning formula using the same 3 components: interpretation, identification, and repetition. We interpret by visualizing positive events, we identify by feeling the desired emotion, and we repeat it daily to strengthen those neural pathways.
The conditioning practices are so actionable. Gratitude, for example, is best as a daily routine, writing things down, thanking people, or even just appreciating the history of a mundane object, like a chair.
Excitement is conditioned through vivid visualization. You envision your ideal day or your goals with painstaking, specific detail, engaging all your senses.
Confidence comes from visualizing your goals not as future hopes, but has already accomplished realities and committing fully to that vision.
And for self-esteem, we have to actively counter the brain's negative bias by tracking daily accomplishments. A win log or a self-esteem jar filled with small successes like I woke up on time or I did my workout.
These small wins physically rewire the brain to acknowledge competency.
And finally, decisiveness is a conditioned muscle. The strategy here is Mel Robbins' 5-second rule. Act within 5 seconds of an idea before your rationalizing mind can manufacture excuses and anxiety.
But what if the emotion is just overwhelming, like grief or deep sadness or intense anger?
Chapter 15 reminds us that sometimes changing your behavior is the only route. William James argued it's the indirect route to changing feelings.
If you are worried sick about a presentation, just thinking I am calm is not enough.
No. But changing your behavior, rehearsing for hours, that shifts the underlying feeling from anxiety to confidence. If you resent a friend, having an honest discussion releases that feeling through action.
When you can't change the feeling, you just have to do what needs to be done until the emotion fades. That's maturity.
And this action includes changing our environment. If checking Facebook constantly leaves you feeling like a failure, you have to drastically reduce that time. Decluttering your desk is immediate emotional hygiene.
We also have to eliminate open loops.
Right. Unfinished business procrastinated tasks, avoided conversations that clutter the mind and drain our energy, like too many apps running in the background. Closing those loops reduces that feeling of overwhelm.
So the book wraps up this section with a comprehensive set of strategies, dividing them into short-term management and long-term change.
Short-term management is about rapid intervention. Changing your state immediately, getting up and moving, adopting a power posture, or using a silly interruption to break the mental pattern.
It also includes taking action anyway, remembering that mature adults do what they have to do, whether they feel like it or not.
And awareness tactics. Writing down your worries, talking to a friend, or using that 5-step process to consciously let the feeling go.
And long-term strategy requires analytical commitment. Daily journaling to spot emotional patterns, identifying the disempowering stories behind them, and actively working to let them go.
And we must commit to removing negativity from our environment, reducing time with negative people or counterproductive habits. And finally, conditioning the mind with daily rituals, especially in the morning and at night.
Okay, we have the biology and the mechanism of change. Now we shift to applying this knowledge to specific, common life roadblocks. The overall philosophy is the same. Emotions are not setbacks. They are guides.
They're reminding us that change is necessary. Ignoring them just leads to louder signals, which can even manifest as physical health issues.
This requires self-awareness, that objective, detached observation of our thoughts and behaviors. The book introduces the above or below the line model for this.
It's a simple binary. When you're operating above the line, you're conscious, open, curious, willing to learn, and taking full responsibility.
This is the state of enhanced performance.
But when you're below the line, you are unconscious and triggered. This state is purely defensive, aimed at protecting the ego.
And behaviors include finding fault, gossiping, rationalizing mistakes,
And attacking anyone who delivers critical feedback.
This ties directly into the fear versus love framework. Are your actions motivated by getting something? Approval, power, validation, which is fear-based?
Or by sharing your knowledge, improving others' lives, which is love-based. Growth requires shifting that underlying motivation away from fear.
Now let's tackle the specific emotional pitfalls, starting with the one that kills more dreams than anything else. Not being good enough.
This is just pure low self-esteem, fueled by focusing relentlessly on our shortcomings while filtering out all our successes.
The negativity bias amplified by the ego.
And here's the paradox. People often get addicted to this negative story. They're afraid to let it go because failure would confirm the belief, see, I told you I wasn't good enough. Or success wouldn't fit their identity as a struggler.
The growth strategy starts with identifying the specific triggers. Then we have to aggressively counter the bias by keeping meticulous track of accomplishments, win logs, a self-esteem jar.
These tangible records provide objective proof against the inner critic.
And we have to learn the simple but very hard act of accepting compliments. The ego wants to minimize success.
The rule is strict. When complimented, say only thank you, don't downplay it. Accepting a compliment is an act of self-respect and respect for the giver.
Okay, let's look at being defensive. We know the ego is the root cause, but specifically, defensive responses come from 3 places.
1, the criticism has a kernel of truth we're avoiding. 2, We internally believe the criticism, and it confirms a negative self-belief.
Or 3, it's an attack on a core belief our identity is wrapped up in.
The growth opportunity is to pause when you feel triggered and ask, what belief am I protecting right now, and can I choose to let go of the need to be right about it?
Moving on to stress and worry. The author insists stress is internal. A traffic jam is not stressful. Our interpretation of the traffic jam is the source of stress.
The strategy is reframing. The traffic jam becomes a neutral event or an opportunity to listen to an audiobook. You challenge the belief that the situation is stressful.
And worry, which is about the past or future, is mostly unnecessary. The key is sorting worries into 3 categories: control, some control, or no control.
Focus all your energy on control and some control. For no control items like the weather, we practice acceptance or reframing.
Chapter 23 deals with one of the most socially crippling issues: caring what people think of you.
The liberating truth here is a difficult pill to swallow. You are the most important person in the world to yourself, and this is true for every single person you meet.
People are just too busy worrying about their own lives, their own image, to think about you that often.
The author references that great quote, "When you're 60, you realize no one was ever thinking about you in the first place."
Seeking universal approval is futile. It just leads to a lack of self-expression and a dull life.
The strategy is simple. What people think of you is none of your business. Focus on expressing your true self with pure intent.
Next up, resentment. This is defined as anger that builds up because someone didn't behave according to your expectations.
The Nelson Mandela quote captures it perfectly. Resentment is like drinking poison and then hoping it will kill your enemies. It only poisons the holder.
The path to growth is realizing resentment is an opportunity to practice forgiveness and radical self-love. Your peace of mind has to be more important than your need to be right.
We have to realize that others act based on their own level of consciousness. Their actions are about them, not a deliberate attack on you.
The process for dealing with it is 4 steps. Reevaluate the interpretation, confront the situation, forgive by releasing attachment to the past, and forget by stopping the mental replay.
Chapter 25 addresses jealousy, which is rooted in a scarcity mindset and that feeling of not being good enough.
But the author suggests using jealousy as a guide. He tells Susan Cain's story. She realized she envied successful writers, but never successful lawyers.
That signal told her she was in the wrong career. It helped her identify her true, suppressed desires.
We have to shift from scarcity to abundance. Stop viewing others' success as them stealing your piece of the pie. See their success as proof that the goal is possible for you too.
And we have to stop the biased comparison trap. The only useful comparison is comparing your today's self with your yesterday's self.
Chapter 26 deals with non-clinical depression, defined here as a loss of hope or an inability to accept a current unwanted reality.
The core message is powerful. Depression is an active process created by identifying with negative thoughts.
And if the mind has the power to create it, the person has the power to climb out. Even negative emotions like anger can be leveraged to move up the emotional ladder.
Depression is often an invitation to let go of the ego that refuses to accept reality and reconnect with the present moment. Since the mind created the problem, more thinking is rarely the solution.
The strategies involve reconnecting with the body, intense exercise, meditation, and focusing on others. Alfred Adler's advice to think daily of how to please someone else is so powerful.
Chapter 27 addresses fear and discomfort. This is just the brain resisting change to avoid threats to the ego, fear of rejection, fear of failure.
Fear limits potential and erodes self-esteem by preventing action.
The growth opportunity is recognizing that fear signals exactly where growth lies. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's taking action despite the fear.
We have to intentionally move out of our comfort zone, realizing the discomfort of learning anything new always fades with practice.
And finally, we tackle procrastination. This is largely an emotional regulation issue, fear of doing a poor job, the task seems too hard, or just a lack of motivation.
When the mind offers excuses like, "I'm too tired," listening makes us its slave.
The author provides a highly detailed 16-step process to crush it. Let's break this down into 3 phases. Phase 1 is diagnosis.
You have to understand the hidden reason. Is it fear? And remind yourself constantly of the enormous, cost-low self-esteem, unaccomplished dreams.
Phase 2, rewriting the story. You have to uncover the specific excuses your mind uses and then immediately rewrite them with empowering affirmations.
In phase 3, Action tactics. Prepare your environment by removing all friction. Start small with micro tasks to reduce the pressure.
Create quick wins by chunking the task down. And most critically, just get started. Aim for only 5 minutes and use the 5-second rule to act immediately before your mind can talk you out of it.
The final chapter addresses lack of motivation, which he sees as a symptom of misalignment between our actions and a compelling purpose.
People with powerful visions rarely retire because they are constantly motivated.
The strategy is to design a life that leverages your strengths, your personality, and your preferences. You have to know what you're good at and know your emotional why.
That emotional why is key. You don't just want to lose weight. You want to lose weight because it will make you feel energized and confident. That's the fuel.
And a final realistic note, motivation comes and goes. We have to rely on systems and self-discipline to take action anyway, regardless of how we feel.
This entire expansive framework, covering nearly 30 chapters, it all distills down to one central, empowering idea.
You are the awareness that witnesses the emotions. You are not defined by them.
Emotions are temporary visitors. They arrive to deliver a message, and then they fade away. Your job is to learn from the signal, create detachment, and consciously let them go.
And your willingness to do that determines the quality of your life.
We have the ultimate power of choice. We can choose to be victims of our outdated biology and our ego, or we can choose to use our emotions as an accurate compass for growth.
That human resilience allows us to overcome even the most severe challenges. We see it in individuals like Alice Summer, the world's oldest Holocaust survivor, and Nick Vujicic, who was born without limbs. They prove the depth of perspective change available to all of us.
May this be the start of your journey to not just navigate your feelings, but to use them as the compass for your most fulfilling life yet.
We encourage you to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to support Awesome Chapter and stay informed about future deep dives. We'll see you next time.